This is our time, and we'll tell you the main news at this hour. In the studio, Yulia Gorovaya. Hello. Let's start with the situation at the front. There were 153 combat clashes over the past day in more than a dozen directions. These are the figures from the morning report of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The most difficult situation is in the Pokrovsk direction. There, Ukraine's defense forces repelled 63 attacks by Russian invaders, 16 in the Lyman direction, and Ukrainian defenders also repelled another 12 attacks by the Russian army in the Novopavlivka direction. It was also tense in the Siversk-Slobozhansky, Kursk, and Kupiansk sectors of the front. Fighting also continued in the southern Slobozhansk, Toretsk, as well as Kramatorsk, Kharkiv, and Siversk directions. In all these areas, the defense forces continue to resist the Russian invaders.
Our officers, our sergeants, our soldiers know how to read the enemy, know how to understand what he is planning, and know how to counteract him more than effectively. That is why, as of today, the enemy has not achieved any significant results on the battlefield. At the same time, they are losing enormous resources and, as a result, have shifted to a somewhat different phase. This involves launching missile and drone strikes deep into Ukraine, targeting the civilian population.
I would add that just in the past day alone, Ukraine's defense forces have eliminated another 920 Russian occupiers. In total, since the start of the full-scale invasion, the Russian army has lost more than 1,049,000 soldiers. According to the Ukrainian Armed Forces headquarters, Ukrainian defenders also destroyed 1 Russian tank, 4 armored combat vehicles, 10 artillery systems, and 1 multiple rocket launcher just the day before. In addition, the defense forces destroyed nearly 200 operational tactical level drones, as well as 11 cruise missiles and more than 120 units of automotive equipment belonging to the Russian invaders. And on Sunday night, Russian troops attacked Kharkiv once again. They struck the outskirts of the regional center with drones. In Kharkiv, a civilian enterprise and a private house were damaged, and in the Kharkiv district, a production and utility facility was hit. Rescuers have already extinguished the fires that broke out. There were no casualties or injuries. However, 3 civilians were injured as a result of Russian shelling in the Sumy region. Late the previous evening, the Russians struck the territory of the Sumy community. All those wounded in the strike are currently in hospitals. A resident of the Kharkiv community was also injured as a result of a Russian drone strike. And in the Osman community, 2 people were killed after stepping on a mine. Over the past day, Russian forces shelled the Sumy region nearly 70 times. 4 people were injured by Russian shelling in the Dnipropetrovsk region as well. Since last night, the Russians have been attacking Nikopol and the Marinets community with heavy artillery and Grad rocket launchers, and have also used FPV drones. As a result of the strikes, several private homes and a power line were damaged. Several communities in the Sinelnikov district were also affected by Russian shelling. The Russians attacked them with FPV drones. Last night, the Russian Federation launched 83 drones at Ukraine from several directions at once. This was reported by the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The defense forces neutralized 78 Russian Shahid-type drones. Hits were recorded at 5 locations, and downed drones fell at 2. Meanwhile, in Russia's Volgograd region, drones attacked a power substation near the railway. This was reported by local social media channels. A fire broke out near an oil depot in the area of Oktyabrski settlement. Authorities confirmed that due to falling drone debris, the power supply to the railway's contact network in the Oktyabrski district was disrupted. It should also be noted that the Zatovo railway station is used for loading and unloading oil and petroleum products, which supply nearby enterprises. Meanwhile, temporary restrictions on the arrival and departure of aircraft were imposed at the airports of Volgograd and Kaluga. Drones also attacked the Leningrad region of the Russian Federation. The Pulkovo Airport in St. Petersburg had to be temporarily closed. It has now already been reopened for departing flights. Earlier, it was reported that more than 70 flights had been delayed or cancelled. Local residents also noted that after the drone threat was announced in St. Petersburg, mobile internet almost completely stopped working. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has decided on a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. According to Ynet, it came into effect today, July 27. This will allow UN and humanitarian organization convoys delivering food and medicine to the population of the Gaza Strip to move safely. Meanwhile, trucks carrying humanitarian aid have already left Egypt for the Gaza Strip. And the United Arab Emirates has announced its intention to airdrop humanitarian aid. Meanwhile, North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un is planning a new intervention in Russia's war against Ukraine. Pyongyang may send additional troops to Russia as early as August. This was reported by Reuters, citing South Korean intelligence. In exchange for strengthening the Russian army, North Korea receives technologies from Russia for satellite launches and missile guidance. South Korean intelligence believes that the Kremlin is planning a major offensive operation against Ukraine as early as August, and the possible involvement of North Korean units is directly related to these plans. Pyongyang has already begun a new mobilization of military personnel to send them to the Russian Federation. The end of Russia's war against Ukraine will be discussed by UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and US President Donald Trump during their meeting on July 28. This was reported by The Telegraph. According to the publication, Starmer will also raise the issue of further assistance to Ukraine. In addition, the leaders will discuss the trade agreement between the UK and the US, signed in May, as well as consider ensuring a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Let me remind you that Donald Trump is in Scotland on an unofficial visit. Today, he has a meeting scheduled with the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Earlier, the politician had already stated that the main topic of negotiations with the American leader would be the future terms of trade. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is losing patience with Putin. This was stated by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in an interview with Fox News. According to him, the American leader remains interested in ending the war that Russia started against Ukraine. And Donald Trump wants to see concrete actions aimed at this. The American leader is disappointed that his interactions and phone calls with dictator Putin are leading nowhere, the U.S. Secretary of State emphasized.
He is becoming increasingly disappointed. Despite good interactions with Putin and phone conversations, it leads to nothing. It's time to act, and he has made it clear that he is losing patience and is no longer willing to wait for the Russian side to put an end to the war. Marco Rubio, U.S. Secretary of State, in an interview with Fox News.
Despite U.S. President Donald Trump's call for a ceasefire, Thailand and Cambodia continued shelling along the border. This was reported by Reuters. The fighting resumed mainly in the northern part of the border, while the day before, clashes had broken out in the south, near. On the evening of July 26th, Donald Trump held telephone talks with the Prime Minister of Cambodia, after which the Cambodian government announced that they agreed to Trump's demands for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire.
As for the hostilities between Cambodia and Thailand, after the Thai Army's incursion, U.S. President Donald Trump expressed his desire to achieve an immediate ceasefire and establish peace between the two countries. In response to Trump's statement, Prime Minister Hun Manet made it clear that Cambodia agreed with his proposal for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire between the two countries.